it is important, and Eastern Region's important in the process, and the participation is crucial to the success here. So I'm going to give some. This is Steve Smith. I'm going to give a slide setup for why we're doing this, and we'll follow that up with some training on how to enter projects into the projects database. I'm guessing that some of you may have seen some of this presentation I'm going to give before. I apologize for that. And you may have seen some demonstration of the projects repository as well, but additional exposure is never, that's never a problem. So with that said, let me go forward. So one of the main questions I guess people have is, what is this? And we sort of have two answers to that question, and two motivations for why we want and need a projects repository. One is kind of fundamental to the question of collaboration and managing innovation in Weather Service and in NOAA, and that is the interface that we're providing allows NOAA employees to investigate and compare projects that are active in the agency, R&D projects, and to improve collaboration and situational awareness of what's going on in the research to application and research to operations arena. So NOAA and Weather Service has been criticized in recent independent studies, some even dating back much further, that we don't do a good job of managing what's going on, that people are working on identical things in different areas, so there's potential for wasted resources and redundancy, and we need to do a much better job of collaborating and trying to get more out of our dispersed and diverse innovation. So having a place where a vast majority of projects are documented in a online interface through the VLab is one way to address that. And so that's part of the motivation, and maybe the key motivation for why we're doing this. And I see the evidence of this problem on a day-to-day basis where, out of the blue it seems, or like a mushroom sprouting out of the ground, there's some new thing that crops up that I wasn't aware of or somebody else wasn't aware of. And if we had been aware of, maybe we would have been able to react to it or anticipate it better or take advantage of it sooner, that sort of thing. The second purpose of this web interface is to allow owners of R&D projects in NOAA to input their data to help us with this FY15 performance measure pilot. This is the memo that John Chattel forwarded from Dr. Spinrad and Louis Cellini speaks to the reasons behind this. Basically, we're looking to measure across NOAA, our output in this area, and because we believe that there's a lot of wonderful R2O going on, lots of science and technology being brought to bear on operations every single year, every single month out of the year, but we don't document it well. So we certainly don't document at the corporate level in a way that we can arm Kathy Sullivan and Rick Spinrad to lobby for more resources for us and to basically make the case that NOAA is doing a good job, and when we're not doing a good job, what we need to do better. So this research to applications, or R2A, has been broken out into three flavors. Research operations is the one that we deal with almost exclusively in Weather Service. Research to commercial applications is the domain of patents and licenses and CRADAs, and some of that is done in the Weather Service. And then the last one is sort of a catch-all category, research to other uses, which allows which really fits things which are research which is applied to some sort of official NOAA publications or research communications, which may influence policy, governmental, local, federal, whatever, state policy and regulations, or resource management, education and outreach. The Ocean Service does quite a bit of this, in where they're asked to do some study about the impact of offshore wind farms, maybe by a local government along the East Coast or something like that. And so there is some R&D that is done to fulfill that need. So it is applied to something. It may not be applied right away. If we look at models of transition to sort of cover these different categories, you have what I call the pass the baton model, which is the one where you need very close coordination from the developer of the technology or science to the implementer and the maintainer, with a schedule and milestones and a very explicit handoff of the technology. The tech transfer model is what's applied to commercialization, and that's governed by the laws that cover that area. And the NOAA's Technology Partnerships Office, that's the place to learn more about that. They are the experts if you have something that you think might be need a patent or some other commercial application. And then the last one is sort of an undefined model, where maybe generally the stakeholders or the potential users of some sort of R&D are known, but in some cases maybe not known at all. So it's important, again, to measure the performance of what I think is better described as a NOAA's R&D ecosystem with respect to this. So, we get money every year from Congress, and it's sort of distributed through this ecosystem. Some of it goes to Weather Service and the other line office. Some go to research labs. Some of those funds go to cooperative institutes, and et cetera, et cetera. And over the years, this ecosystem has served the agency quite well. It doesn't take you more than 5 seconds to think of something that we use in Weather Service on a day-to-day basis that originated in some NOAA research lab that was an investment long ago that we're still using today, like the WSR-88D, the dual pole that later came onto that, and maybe in the future the multi-phased radar, the MPAR, for example. But we need a way to sort of measure this. So in these NOAA administrative orders recently, we've been proposed to use this framework here, which is based on the concept of a technical readiness level, sometimes called a technology readiness level, which is originated in NASA. And it's a simple sort of index which measures technical and scientific maturity, and can be applied hopefully across all of NOAA. It's generic enough that it's sort of a model that can be adapted for whether you're doing numerical weather prediction modeling enhancements, or you're doing AWIPS applications, or you're doing fish catch estimates in the fisheries service. You're applying developing unmanned aerial systems to different purposes, and it's basically follows a life cycle of sort of research to development to demonstration and application. And the idea is we would like to know in NOAA what this picture looks like across the agency. There being two sort of extremes. One of them you could say is the effective sort of picture, which is up here, where you sort of a pyramid with a very wide base, lots of things going on in the prototype researchy thing, but only a small percentage of those, or smallish percentage, actually move up into development and then into demonstration. But once something is fully demonstrated and technically mature, you would hope that it moves into operations quite efficiently. So this would be a sort of a good case scenario to look at, because the other thing is to keep in mind is going up this pyramid, the cost increases. So we know this from examples, many examples in Weather Service. Just to name one, the IRIS application, which is now getting moved into the IDP as part of the impacts catalog and the INWS project. That started out in in the regions and at a fairly low cost, but now to keep it up 24/7 and manage for a nationwide capability requires a whole lot of resources that are invested into the IDP web farm, as well as the staff and so forth. So we're a very good creative group of ITOs in the field, sort of work this thing from the grassroots at a relatively low cost. It now is, I would say, quite expensive to operationalize that system and keep it up and running. The other side of the spectrum, which we hope we don't see, is this picture where basically things move from a researchy stage to a development fairly quickly and easily, and then similarly up into demonstration. But at the last mile, as it's sometimes described, there's a bottleneck. So only a very small percentage of what's technically mature, low-hanging fruit, ready to go, actually gets into operations. This would be a ineffective and inefficient view of what's going on in NOAA. But we don't know. That's the point. We do not know what the real picture is, and the only way we can find out is to sort of collect project-level data across NOAA and look at it and sort of build up this picture from the grassroots. And so that's what was going on now in Weather Service, and this is why we stood up this projects repository. One of the reasons that I already talked about is to provide the answer to this kind of question and be able to measure it with time, look to see where we could improve things or how we could improve things if they indeed need to be improved. So why is it important that Eastern Region participate? It should be Central Region. So Eastern Region gets credit for, I've updated these slides, but I missed something. So Eastern Region gets credit for the R&D innovations that they develop and which may eventually transition operations, so that Weather Service contributes to the effort of NOAA leadership to attain more funding for this. There's at least one effort Dr. Spinrad is leading to provide a so-called transition account, new money coming into NOAA for these types of things. And the bottom line, so that we can improve. We believe that knowing what the picture is, we can get out of this perpetual state of anecdotal stories. Well, this project had problems because, etc., and actually focus on seeing whether those are representative or not. But we believe that there's a lot of great R2O that takes place that we just don't get credit for because we don't document it. So lastly, I added to this slide here is that really we would like and greatly appreciate if Eastern Region could input their project data, initial project data, into the database by no later than July 2nd, so that we can sort of move things along in a reasonable way. But this is only the initial project data. Keep in mind, as you'll see momentarily, and you may already be aware, you can add more projects at any time. You can update what you've already put in there. So, but we really would like folks to kind of try to make an initial cut by that time frame. So with that, I think, John, we can hand it over to Mike.
Okay, Mike should have the screen.
Okay, I've transferred that over. Hopefully you can see that.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so what I was going to go over today is what you can do as a project owner out here in the projects repository. One thing that you might want to do is go out here and search for projects that have already been entered in here. And there are a couple different ways for you to do that. Up here in the upper section of the portlet, we have a toolbar, and in the upper right, global search feature here. And this is where you would search through multiple fields in the repository. And what it does is it searches through a lot of these fields that are in the grid. It also searches through any tags or categories that you might have attached to these projects. And as you can see, that entering storm, it narrowed this down a little bit. You can kind of see storm in some of these descriptions over here. See what the results were for that. So that's the basic global search. We also have a more advanced search that we designed more for narrowing things down as you are working through this. For example, you might be looking for something with a keyword of model in there. And with that, you still get quite a few results. We have 15 with that. So then maybe you want to say, maybe we just want to see what's with MDL as the receiving organization, and hit the search button again. So this will search through a combination of both fields here, the description and the applying organization. You can see that narrowed it down to just 2 projects that are in the repository that match both of those fields. So that's another way to find projects out here in the repository. And once you locate it, in the grid that's returned here, there's a link in the first column here. If you click on that, it'll take you to a more detailed view of that project. Another way to find things might be just to sort through the different fields. These column headers that are underlined are all sortable. I'll just go to this first column here, project name. Currently it's sorted in ascending order. If you click on that again, it'll reverse that order in descending order. So it's just another way to kind of look through here. Okay, so that's how to find some projects if you're browsing through here. Another thing that you guys will be needing to do is to add projects into the repository. And we have that option up here on the toolbar. The Add Project button right here will take you to a form that you need to fill out. And I'll walk through that form with you. It's a 5-step form. A lot of the steps have required fields, and those are kind of indicated here next to the label of the field. And then you navigate through the different steps with next button and previous buttons at the bottom of the form. We pre-populate the name and email address of the person that's logged in here. If you're filling this out for somebody else, you can change that information. Just highlight it and enter the project owner information
Mike?
here. Yes.
Is it possible to zoom in a little so you can see this a little better?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's screen resolution.
A little better?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, you bet. All right. Step 3, we have different organizations to populate for different fields here. And the first is the line office for this. And then the next ones, we have a dual navigation system here. One is a drop-down where you can click on that and it'll give you the full list of all the organizations that we've populated. Or if you don't want to sort through all that and you know the name or part of the name, you can just start typing in here, and it's an autocomplete feature where you can find it and select it.
Mike, are those at the FMC level?
So what we've done is on the if you look through the acronym here, it starts with Department of Commerce, and it works its way down to NOAA, National Weather Service, and then we see the Eastern region here. I'm not sure if that answers the question.
Okay,
I know.
So for the Weather Service, we're talking about the regions, the different NCEP centers, the different portfolios, I would assume, SCI,
yes.
AFS.
Yeah.
Would be the level we're assigning these at.
That's right, Jeff. That's what we're trying to start out with. We may want to go more granular at some point, but keep in mind we're doing this all across all of NOAA, so we're trying to keep it manageable. So
that's fine. I just want to make sure I was understanding.
Yeah.
That's good. Thanks.
One of the things Mike will show you when he gets to entering an actual project, there's ways to sort of like identify if it's coming from a particular WFO, for example, that you could show that origin specifically through another way, but it would still be labeled at this level from Eastern Region. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. Okay, and then the next field is what kind of project is this? Is it going to R2O, R2C, or RTU? And if it is R2O, you'll notice that that the target system will be required if that's selected.
Mike, excuse me, going back up a minute to the applying organization, I'm not so sure how that's defined. What does that mean?
Yeah, so Ken, there's these mouse overs and stuff on all of these things on the table, so you can see those definitions. But I'll tell you, for the applying organization, this is who will be maintaining whatever's implemented. So, for example, if it's something going into IDP, it'll be NCO. If it's something going in a supercomputer, it'll be NCO. If it's something going into AWIPS, it's going to be the Central Processing Office, for example. So that's what that one means. The transition partner is whoever is working to with that receiving organization to carry out the transition. So for like MOS guidance, MDL works with NCO to get new MOS guidance in. So MDL would be the transition partner and NCO would be the receiving agency. The source organization could be anybody. It could be NCAR, it could be WFO Buffalo. It's really open-ended on that one. So that's the basic flavor for those, and but it's all spelled out in the user's guide as well as in those mouse over tips as well.
Okay, so this is assuming that there's some sort of tangible something or another, be it software or something being transitioned, as opposed to, say, a project that produces a new technique, which is basically knowledge. It seems like there's no place here for something like that. Say maybe some. Go ahead.
That's correct. That's correct. Unless it would make its way into some sort of like tool, whether it's an AWIPS tool or a local app in AWIPS or a web tool or something like that. This does not account for that sort of knowledge transition.
Okay, because I could envision something like, some concept of something that might take advantage of existing tools within AWIPS, applied in a different way. There's no way of really capturing that here, it seems.
Yeah, or if there's a way where you don't know until you get a certain way down the road. And I'm thinking a lot about some of the collaborative research, C-STAR kinds of things. Sometimes sometimes the project had something in mind at the beginning, and sometimes you're starting with the knowledge, and once the research plays its way out, you need the research to play its way out to determine what the appropriate tool would be.
Right. So that's a good point. And already, when you go looking in this, what's already in the database, you'll see that Chris Hedge has put the C-STAR projects in there, and a lot of them are at the low TRL levels. And he put, I think they're all considered R2O, and he put some, I think he put AWIPS for some, etc. But that could change. Any of these fields could change later on, or the project may not actually ever get to be transitioned. That's another possibility, right?
And some of them may need to be split. That's, in terms of C-STAR, I can coordinate that with Chris, where there may be some at the sub-project level, where there's multiple activities under a given grant.
Right. And none of this is written in stone, so if you guys think of a better way to handle it, like, I just wanted to make sure because Louis Cellini he's like fixated on these C-STAR projects, so I wanted to make sure they're in there, so I said, Chris, get them in there. But if it's more appropriate, say the local WFO, who's ever sponsoring the C-STAR project, working with the university, if it's better that they should enter in that data, then I'm fine with that. It's just that, we can update that, we can change those projects to represent that. So part of this is why we're really hoping to learn from this.
Right. It may be more at the region. That's one of the things we're trying to figure out is how much do we want to get the local offices involved in this, or is that not a good use of their of their time, and that's something that we should handle.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna go to a separate but related question. So.
Okay, let me just jump in before you do that. So, I mean, ideally, we believe that if the person who's really working the thing, whether they're in a WFO or the regional headquarters or wherever, if they're the one who enters it in, then they're going to more likely want to keep the data current. So when it gets to a new TRL level, they're going to go and update it. So ideally, we think the person, wherever they are at, who's really the owner of the project, you could say, really feels motivated and has been selected to do this, that's the best. But that may not always work out correctly. The other thing, speaking of the regions, we really do want to see things that are in their formative stage that may or may not pan out, that are just sort of like ad hoc prototypes, because it's the lower part of the pyramid is part of this picture. So I would say err on the side of put it in rather than leave it out, because there's no harm in putting it in. There's no penalty for putting something in that doesn't pan out or whatever. So that's the messaging we really would like the regions to take forward with their staff is, hey, somebody might be interested in this and somebody might want to collaborate with you with it. So go ahead and put it in. There's no harm. We can always it can always be updated, or ultimately it may not pan out, whatever. So I'm sorry, Jeff, go ahead and finish your next question.
For projects or that involve collaborations external to NOAA and DOC, and even if it's a grant so say even the majority of the work is being done externally, but there is some partnership, these would still be entered kind of with the NOAA partner-centric?
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on the project, right? So if we are, so most of this is intended to be implemented within NOAA. So if it's partnering with somebody else outside of NOAA, but it actually ends up being implemented in NOAA, then we would want to know about it. I think if it's also if it is going outside of NOAA, that's also a legitimate. There are cases we know in, like Nestis, for example, where they implement stuff. They work with somebody, actually DOD owns it. So yeah, I guess all those cases are potentially candidates for this. And the way, Mike will get to this, you can add organizations to the list. Like if you got, I don't know,
USGS
yeah, exactly, USGS, laboratory, whatever, blah blah blah. Then you just go ahead and use the little sub portlet or whatever Mike calls it, and you can enter in that organization so that when you go to finish that project, you'll be able to basically add that organization to the list.
Steve, one more question. I just was looking and saw the fields that are required, and the R2O field is required. Going back a moment to the question about projects that are more knowledge-oriented, let's say a
conceptual model.
Yeah, conceptual model, or use of satellite data in a different way using existing tools. Seems to me we'd lose those projects just because some of the required fields couldn't be filled out. So I'm wondering if those cases are an R2U instance.
Yeah, yeah. I think, Ken, that's an excellent point. You could capture those in the R2U, and you wouldn't have to supply a target system.
Okay.
So do that. That's really, I'm glad you caught that. I hadn't brought that up with other groups, so that would be the way to handle that.
Okay, because I'm afraid some projects might not get in here otherwise.
Right. And the thing that I'm not sure is how well the TRL level applies to that. You're just going to have to take a wag at it, I guess.
Sure.
But yeah, that would be the way to handle that.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure.
Okay.
So, Mike, I think you can pick it back up, Mike.
Okay, great. So, as Steve mentioned, if you don't find an organization or if you don't find a target system in the list, from here you can add one of those, and these forms will look very similar. I'll go ahead and just add a target system at this point. And for the organizations, it'll have 3 fields as well. And that would save it, and then once it's saved, it takes you back to where you left off, and then that will be available in the list. You can see it here, and that organization works just the same way. The form has 3 fields as well, a little bit different, asking for a little bit different information on those. But that's how you would quickly add one if you don't find one in the list right away. And then the last item on this page, on this step of the form, is the TRL level. We have the 1 through 9, a quick, brief description of what those levels mean next to it. And then click Next. And step 4 is if there's a transition plan associated with this project. If so, you change this to a yes. And if you have an anticipated transition date, you can enter that here. And I think I hit enter to save it, and I had all the required fields there. So that saved that, and if I hit the back button here, it puts that at the very top. And say I accidentally hit that enter button, I can go ahead and edit this, I think, if I zoom out just a little bit. On the right, there's a drop-down arrow where you can take some different actions, and one is edit. And I'll do that here. So you can see that those last steps. Step 5 is the categorization. Actually, let me finish the step 4 here. So the transition date was saved. If you have a document that documents that transition plan, you can expand this section here and browse to a file, an Excel spreadsheet or PowerPoint or Word document or whatever that you might have for that transition plan, and it'll get attached here. And the last step here is the categorization. We have different categories that are predefined that you can choose to categorize this project by. And also there's a tag section, and this is a free-form area where you can put whatever you want rather than having to select from something that's already predefined.
Right. And here's where you could put like WFO Buffalo or something too, you know.
Okay. And since this project has been changed, we do add another step. You can attach additional documents to this project if you want to once it's been saved. And there's just an interface to do that. And I'm not going to go through that step right now. Go ahead and save that. And just want to make a couple more comments on once it's you've created a project here. And that is, we are processing this through a workflow. There's a one-step workflow where the line office approver will approve it, just kind of sanity check looks like, see if there's anything missing or anything like that. And then so at this point, the person that entered the information and the owner and the line office approver can view this in the grid. All other users in the VLab can't see it at that point. But once it's been approved, that status will change from pending to active, and then anyone can see it and browse through it on there. Also, hopefully, you know, throughout the course of the lifetime of the project, you'll be going out here and updating by going to this drop down and clicking the edit button. And you know, one of the things that we really want to see is the transition level changing over time. Do that and click the save. And when those transition levels do change, we do have a drop-down feature over here where you can actually review that history. This is one, most of these don't have a very lengthy history, they just have one line, but you can see that I created it at a level 2 today, and then I also changed it to level 4 today, and that's what level it's at, because we see the present as the end date there. We also have a manage button up here, and this is where you can kind of browse through the different target systems and the organizations, and it's also an alternate way of actually entering a new organization if you want to. Once you go to this screen, you can see the different organizations that we have out here, and you can click the Add Organization button if you needed to add one from this spot here. And after entering all this data, one of the final things that we're trying to do is do something with the data and present what's going on with these projects, and that's why we have this reports page. And right now we just have some different charts that display what's going on with the different projects. And you see the one in the upper left here. This is a number of projects at each technical readiness level, and this is our live data here, so it's dynamically generated. Bar chart to kind of give you a visual representation, and then down below is a table, so you can actually see the actual number here. And if you hover over it too, it'll give you the actual number on that bar. And the pie charts are representations of the percentages. So what percent of the projects are at each technical readiness level. So this red here is readiness level 2, and you can see that's 22% of them are at that level. And again, if you hover over, it'll give you a little pop-up showing you what level that represents, and a table down below so you know what that percentage is. And the other two reports are phases that the projects are in, and what those are, we have a little key down here, 4 different phases. We have a research phase, development phase, demonstration phase, and then operational phase, operational transition phase. And what those are is TRL levels 1 and 2 are in research, 3 through 5 are in development, 6 through 8 in demonstration, and then TRL level 9 is operational. And this is the same representation, number of projects at each phase, and also the percentage of projects at each phase. And that is all that I wanted to show. I don't know if you had any questions or if there's some additional things we needed to look at on this.
Mike, maybe you should explain the status, the project status.
All right. Okay. So, so you saw on the status we had a pending. That means that it hasn't been approved yet, and you saw active for the status. That means it's been approved and it's active in here. If I go to edit this one here, you can see that on the first step there is a status label. Once it's been approved, this becomes active, or you can change that status. And we have 5 different statuses that can be changed. This can be changed to, and so let's say the project has been completed. You can go ahead and change it to completed, and that way, you know, we know that that's been done. Other things that could happen is it's been terminated. That means, you know, it is no longer a viable project. So those can be changed as part of the review process when we go out and update the status of these projects. You know, the status is a main thing, and the TR levels are another main thing to maintain on the projects.
Yeah, and we will be. I mean, we're planning to have kind of like a ping process that will be in play that will essentially ask the project owner periodically whether or not they need to update any of the data, and if they don't respond to that ping after a certain amount of time, then it'll automatically switch the status to dormant, which means we don't know what's going on. Nobody's answering the mail, so to speak. So, and I just realized, Mike, we're going to have to make this hardwire this so that if somebody selects TRL 9, that it should automatically put the status to completed. You know. Okay. So make a note of that.
All right.
Yeah. So we've been particularly with like MDL projects, and MDL's been, you know, since it's our shop, we've been having people really go to town on this. So we asked that even projects that were completed in FY15, if they're completed, to put them in here. So they'll show up as TRL 9. They're already done. They're in the hopper. So they actually should show completed, but I think right now they just show active. So anyway, other questions or comments from you guys?
Probably one thing to note is that we do have a help section. We have a user's guide. So if there's any questions, you can access that user guide right from that menu item there.
Steve, this is Brian Marinsky. Wanted to clarify a little on when you were talking with Jeff before about trying to get projects in here and being very loose with that. What granularity do you see this going? Do you see somebody at one individual office is making a change to their web page? I mean, how far down do you want to go with what is a project?
Yeah, so the question is, it's a judgment call at this point. We don't have much more than just loose guidelines. So I think it should represent the project. An R&D project should be something that's bringing something new to the picture. It's not just adaptive maintenance. So I would say updating a web page wouldn't qualify. But if it was like developing a new decision support interface for a WFO web page, that could. Because in theory, that could be shared with other offices, and it's representing something that's being applied to the mission.
Okay, so let me give you a further example. Smart tools. Do you want every new smart tool in this repository?
No. We don't for the smart tools because we got a so this National Smart Init project is now in there. You'll see that, and so I would say if there's a new version of the National Smart Init tools that goes out, that one we would want because that would sort of be a national capability and would capture presumably things that were relevant that worked their way up into that process. So, you know, it's not a definitive no, but I think we would want to see that sort of thing.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, but if it's a significant like regional or local thing, you know, that might be fair game. You know, particularly if there was some thought that it could be useful in other regions for other purposes, or just, you know, because then you would say you might want to use this to promote that thing. You know, it's sort of verging into the thing, you know, with Ken and yourself in the ideas marketplace, right? So if you want to like promote something, that maybe you want to get it in here so that you can direct people to it, and you could put in the attached documents, you could put PowerPoint presentations and other stuff in there.
Okay, but that would be for the ideas marketplace.
Yeah, but you know, if somebody's working on it, technically, you know, even if it's just like one person, I guess it falls in that TRL 1 to 2 area, and that's how everything starts as an idea. So I guess, you know, like I said, I think we're at this point we're looking for use cases for different types of projects. So err on the side of put it in rather than keep it out. I understand the messaging to, if you go out to your region, well, what you don't want to have people putting in, like you were just saying, you know, some little like, well, I just you know, I changed one letter in a line of you know, Python script. No, we don't want to see that. But I think if you capture like something new that's nominally R&D, science and technology, that's designed to improve our operational products or services, and it's not adaptive maintenance, it's not a bug fix, then we probably would want to know about it, at least initially. I mean, we may have to dial this back tremendously. We'll see. Right now, things seem to be reasonable. People are using, I think they're hitting the mark pretty well. And maybe that's one of the things, too. You can sort of look at what's in there and get some sense. Of course, everybody's going to have a new use case that won't be represented in what's already in the database, but what the hell?
Steve, questions. First off, I always seem to have difficulty navigating the collaborative side of VLab. So I log in. How do I find this?
You'll see at the toolbar at the very top, you see where it says Welcome, Science Sharing Communities, Development Services, NOAA Projects Repository. That's where you just click on that and it'll take you right there.
Okay. All right, so that takes care of one question. Second question, this seems to adequately take the place of the spreadsheet we used to have to fill out every year up until a few years ago in terms of projects going on.
That's right.
And I saw your introductory slides in terms of the motivation behind this, but in fact, all this gets populated into a database, spreadsheet, whatever is behind it. Who, in fact, is going to come in and look at this and make decisions?
Well, initially, what we are focusing on is a corporate level for decision making. It's going to be all rolled up into these corporate measures. So we're really looking to see what NOAA has going on. So there's really no decision making other than, you know, we want to see what the NOAA's metrics look like. How many there's this really big interest to see how many transitions happen in a single year across the agency. We don't know. How many things go from 8 to 9 in 1 year? We just have no idea. So if we can pull that out, we will already have made our executive bosses very happy. and that may be enough.
So initially, it's basically maybe a diagnostic tool.
Exactly. There is no attempt to manage or to. There's plenty of other, like a lot of these projects are, they're quad chart, they're QPR projects that we have to brief, Louis and all these other people. So there's plenty of other ways that the people are in charge of these things are having to report on. So we're not an additional, check. Let me put it that way. So really, all we are hoping for is to get some of these data, and also on that first thing was the situational awareness. I mean, one of the goals from the get-go on the VLAB was to be able to improve situational awareness on what's going on. So we feel like for the first time we have at least a mechanism to do that, where if everybody plays well and puts their projects in, we can say, well, go and see what's in there, or go look for something, or et cetera. So we would like to think that a large majority, of course, we'll never have them all. We may have too many, but at least what's in here should be fairly representative of what's going on in the agency.
We're envisioning flash forward 12, 18 months from now, and Louis replaces that slide, that bullet in his slide. Instead of saying 25,000 local applications, REAWIPS 2, it becomes 25,000 projects on a path to transition to operations. But
I was afraid you were going to say 25 million.
Looking at this, there's a lot that we're going to have to chew on in terms of how we want to approach this as a region and get this populated, in an effective and efficient manner. And do some communication not only with our field offices, but across some of the other groups here at the regional headquarters. And of course, this is a time where things are starting to get cranked up for FY16, that we're getting hit with a lot of other data calls and spend plans and AOP kinds of efforts. That July 2nd is going to be a real problem to I think we can have some stuff in there by then, but just from a level of expectations, it's going to take longer than that to get this meaningfully populated. Especially, I know I have some stuff that's going to require some coordination, like with people like Chris Hedge, to kind of figure out how do we really want to handle and populate and such. So I just that's a really I don't know exactly what your level of expectation by that date is, but I would say it would be a struggle for me to say I have 50% of the stuff entered by that date.
Yeah, I just Jeff, I appreciate that, and I certainly understand. Up until briefing you guys, I hadn't put any suspense date, but I realized that's probably not a good thing either. So I'm just trying to push this along so that people, because the fiscal year will be over with before we know it. So we kind of got to move on this, and so I'm not going to be calling you up on July 2nd and complaining. I'm just trying to give you some kind of target. If you can make it, if you get one in, and you're going to get 20 more in the next 3 weeks, what am I going to do? I understand. So go ahead.
I was going to say, is it maybe better to, from a where to put my efforts to get the earlier things in, things that might be closer to higher levels, or things that might be looking for resources in the next couple of years, as opposed to the little projects that are still at stage 1, and very early exploratory can wait. Kind of is that kind of a good strategy?
Yes. I totally agree with that. Whoop, hello?
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes. I can hear you.
Great.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So that's fine, Jeff. But chew on it as long as you like. But again, once you play around with it a little bit, you can, I think, start to see it's pretty easy to do. So, but I certainly understand the desire to kind of put some planning into it and how you want to approach going about it. But yeah, Ken Johnson, I mean, you're right. This is one of the things we'd hope for, was to get out of that. If we ever had to face it again, unfortunately we didn't have to go through those awful Excel spreadsheet exercises again. We will no longer ever do that. We will only use this.
And that was one of the whole motivations for VLab to start with, I think.
Right,
was
right.
Really this kind of information repository, and it appropriately expanded from there.
Yeah. So hopefully this will save us some pain and effort.
Is there envision that there will be direct linkages established, as this matures? If it's a project that is being, shall we say, for lack of a better word, executed within the VLab environment, between the software side or the collaboration side, that there'll be some sort of like, okay, I'm here in the repository and I can click on something and immediately go over to the collaboration.
Yes, right. That is definitely in the vision, that would sort of become transparent at some point where, and we've talked about this already. There may be some quick ways to get some of that functionality in there. You could quickly move to the community or to the project if you were in the Redmine, for example. Yeah, definitely, Jeff. That's in our plans. But right now, they're still going to be independent or loosely connected for the moment.
Now, just kind of give an idea of what may be in there already, because there's a lot of multi-region or activities. Kind of have most of the headquarters-ish offices already started entering, and then how about the regions, so to kind of know what? There's a couple of regional projects. I think Central put in a couple. We're still briefing. We got to do Western is coming up. We're going to do Pacific tomorrow. But I'm on the hook to like ping there's specific ST&I projects. Wants me to get all of those in there. Right. Yeah. The AOP stuff. Yeah.
Right. The AOP stuff has definitely got to get in there. And NCEP, we briefed NCEP, but so far there's no NCEP projects in there explicitly. So that's a huge source of stuff. We're still at the beginning, I think, Jeff, even from Weather Service perspective.
Okay, so that gives me the idea of who then I may need to talk to. I mean, I see the C-Star stuff is already there, but there's other stuff, like I assume National Blend of Models is probably already there. But there's some cross-regional stuff. I'd imagine there's a whole bunch of maybe some of the satellite GOZAR stuff that would need to be added in there, but so it's probably not in there yet.
There's definitely more not in there than in there.
Yeah, I can imagine a lot of maybe some of the data things that are on the AWIPS SREC.
Yep. There's plenty of AWIPS stuff that's missing, and we're probably going to be working with the AWIPS folks to address some of that. That may be again. We're trying to hit the organizations first, I think, so that we at least get out to that audience. But there's definitely going to be other specific targets we'll look at. I mean, there's things going in Lucano's that we'll need to try to get in here. Not IDP, IDP program, right, in the dissemination office and the OBS office and that sort of thing. So, hey guys, I gotta go. We're at the top of the hour, but I really want to thank you for participating and great questions. Do your best. If you have any questions, you can contact me or John or VLab admin, and we'll try to help you out through to answer those or help you out with whatever problem you're facing.
All right, Steve. Well, thanks a lot. We appreciate you guys taking the time to do this and answer all the questions, and we'll give you a shout should we need help.
Very good. Thanks a lot. Have a good weekend, guys.
Okay. You